Hi! Yesterday was a public holiday and I spent the day finishing an order for a bride, and she collected last night, so that's something that's all done and ticked off my list now. I was at work today and now I'm home. It's about 6 p.m. and I'm about to start work on making the pattern and the toile for this couture dress that I'm making for the photo shoot and that I'm filming the video for as well. So I've got all my corset patterns out, I've got dress patterns out, and I'm about to alter them and redesign them to suit what I'm doing. And then I'm going to cut some calico and some lining fabric scraps that I've got here to make the toile, and then Sarah is coming tomorrow evening to try it all on. Working on the toile and the pattern for this couture dress last night and then this afternoon when I got home from work. I'm logging how long it takes me, because one thing people always ask me about my dresses is how long did that take? People seem to be fascinated by how long things take. So I'm going to try and log all my hours that I work on this. And so far making the patterns and putting the toile together has taken me about 5.5 hours. So just to give you an idea of how slow something like this is. So what I've got from that is I've got a corset made in calico with boning in it. Then I've cut this skirt to go over it. So eventually this will be a dress. So I've used the bottom half of the corset pattern to draft the hips and then continue down into the skirt. And eventually when I cut this in the right fabric, I will join the top parts of the corset pattern and the skirt pattern together to cut full length pieces for the dress. So there'll be an internal corset, full length dress, strapless dress over the top. Then I'll use that same pattern, so the full length strapless pattern, to cut the lace. And then because my lace isn't long enough, because it's going from neck to floor length, the width of the lace just isn't quite long enough. So the way I'm going to get around the lace not being the right length is I've cut this pattern for the top of the dress. So this is the bodice up to the neck and the long sleeves, and I'm going to try this over the corset. Then I'm going to mark on here where the top of the corset and the dress sits on here, and I'm going to cut this out of the lace just a little bit longer than the top of the dress, and I'm going to cut around the pattern at the edge of the lace, and I'm actually going to hand stitch this on. So once it's on, it will look like one piece, but it means that I don't have to worry about putting a join. Sometimes you see for long dresses like this, you'll see a join in the waist, and I don't want to join there. So by joining it across the bust, across the top of the strapless dress, I can get away with having the seam there and I can lose it in the pattern of the lace. I want it to be quite high, so I've cut it as like a sort of a boat neck on here, and hopefully it'll give her enough movement. We might have to leave a bit of extra fabric there. One of the things about putting sleeves onto corseted dresses is, if you think like this dress that I've got on now, when I lift my arms up, the whole dress lifts up with me to give me that movement under the arms. When you've got a corseted dress on and it's really tight around the waist, it restricts that movement. You see how holding that at my waist makes it really hard to lift my arm. By hiding extra fabric under here, or by putting a gusset in underneath the arm, that should give us enough fabric that Sarah can move her arms enough without the dress lifting up. So even though the finished video of me creating this couture gown is going to be quite short and just show you all the steps, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk in more detail about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it in these vlogs. So you can watch the video when it's up. you can see the steps of creating this dress, and then you can come back and watch these vlogs again, and it'll make more sense when I explain things like this to you, why I've done it this way because of the width of the lace, and why I'm putting the gussets in the armhole, in the armpits and things like that. So hopefully you'll find it really interesting to follow this process. Even if it's something you're never going to do yourself, hopefully you'll find it fascinating watching just what's involved and the amount of time involved in creating something couture. So these parts are all ready. Now I'm just going to have a really quick tidy up, set the backdrop and the lights and the camera up, and she'll be here within about 10 minutes, I think. So Sarah's just been, we've done the fitting. I was really hoping I could get away with one fitting so I could get on with making it, but we do need to do quite a few changes. It's such a complex design and I want to get it absolutely right. So I'm going to make the changes in the morning. I might even start after dinner tonight actually. And Sarah's going to come back tomorrow night and we're going to do a second fitting. Right, so it's time to work on the pattern alterations after Sarah's fitting last night, and I'm going to make a new corset calico. I'm going to alter the skirt pattern, how we pinned it, and then I'm going to remake the whole top part. The front and the back were fine, but the sleeves and the armholes weren't, so I need to recut those and try them again. And I'm going to add in the gusset under the arm that I was talking about last night as well, so we can check that and check the movement. So the first thing I'm doing is the corset pattern alteration. So I've kept a copy of the corset as I cut it last time. So I've taken that and I've drawn that on to some pattern paper. And now I'm going to use the markings and the pins on the calico toile that we tried last night to alter my pattern. So I'm going to do the pattern alterations, cut it out, and then cut it out in calico and make a whole new toile to try on tonight. So I've finished the alterations to the couture dress and it's ready for Sarah to try on again later. There's toys everywhere. Lil's been hanging out with me while I've been sewing today. She's got a little table set up. She's got drawing and Shopkins and her laptop and all sorts, but she's been so good, bless her. So I've made the corset as a double layer all the way round and I've put a lot more boning in, and I've actually finished the seams just by top stitching either side, so it's really smooth. And I've put boning, quite a lot of boning in all the way around. And by boning it and stitching the boning into double layers of calico, we should see how the fit is a lot better. So I've made these little bits of calico with boning in and holes that I can just stitch onto the back of corset toiles and then unpick and reuse. And then I've marked where the centre back is because that's where we want the dress to line up. I think I'm going to do the corset lace up and then the zip up dress over the top. I haven't quite decided yet. So then I've done all the alterations to the skirt and that's pinned on. Then I've got the sleeves done. I've made them, they had to be bigger and then they were too long at the top, so I've done that. And then I've stitched them on, and I've actually stitched a gusset into the underarm, just roughly, just to see if this is going to work. And then I've got that whole top section pinned onto the top of the corset. So when Sarah gets here in about an hour, she can try that on. And hopefully the fit will be good enough for me to start cutting it out in the right fabrics tomorrow. So next I'm going to get started on the peach dress. So the job I need to get done today is I'm going to take it apart at the waist seam completely, because we're changing the shape at the bottom. We're getting rid of that point at the front there. Take the straps off, get the metal boning on the inside and shorten the petticoat, and then it's ready to try tomorrow morning. Okay, so we've got the second calico with all the alterations from yesterday and the skirt with the alterations too. So you can see now the skirt's got this beautiful fit and flare shape to it. So we've still got lots of movement at the hem, but it's just showing off your amazing curves here. But it's still loose enough over the corset at the hips that it should just skim it and you shouldn't see the corset through it. So I'm really happy with that. I just need to cut some extra length on it when I cut it from the right fabric. The corset's fitting really well now, but it's just a tiny bit, if you turn sideways, it's just sitting up a tiny bit there. So I just need to make it a little bit narrower just across that top of that front panel. So this whole part I'm really happy with. I can go ahead and start making this in all the right fabrics now. The top part we're still working on. Let me show you. Still figuring out these sleeves and getting the movement right. So it's way better than it was yesterday. Yeah, the sleeves are just still not right, and they're still, if you try and move your arm up, yeah, they're still, actually that's there. So what I'm actually wondering now with this, so I showed you earlier how I put the gusset under the sleeves to give more movement. I think it's here, now I can see it actually on, that we need more movement. So I'm wondering if maybe I just don't attach it between here and the equivalent at the back as well. So if I hold it there and there, does that help a bit? And we need to make a little bit, the sleeves just a bit tight through here as well. So once we've got a bit more fabric in there, the sleeves should slide up your arm a little bit more as well. So we'll try that, and we'll keep playing with this part while I work on this part, and hopefully it'll all start to come together soon. Round of applause from the unicorn. Round of applause from the unicorn on the floor.
Thanks, unicorn.
So it's time to actually start working on this dress in the right fabrics now, which is really exciting. So I've just done that tiny alteration just to the top of the corset, just to get it sitting flatter at the top. It was just standing up a little bit too much. So now I'm going to go and interface my satin and start cutting it out and constructing the corset that's going inside this dress. So I've been working on the internal corset for this dress, and I just want to show you how I'm doing this. I'm doing things a little differently to how I've done them before, because I want to try and make this corset as thin as possible so it doesn't show through to the top layers of the dress. So I want to make it quite invisible. So I've actually made 2 layers. So I've cut exactly the same pieces twice and made 2 layers. Both layers are from an interface satin. Now, normally at this point, if I'm making a corset, I will put a strength layer on both sides as well. I've actually left that strength layer out this time. The satin's pretty strong by itself, and this corset's not giving a huge amount of reduction, so it doesn't need a huge amount of strength to it. And then in another bid to reduce bulk, I've bought this really thin steel boning. So I think it's only 6 mils across, whereas I normally use one, I think it's 8 mil, the one I normally use. So I'm going to do more bone casings, but use this finer one. So I'm hoping that that will keep it really nice and smooth underneath as well. Another thing I don't do is I don't use the metal tips. So if you've made corsets and use this boning, you know you can buy those metal tips that you sort of crimp onto the end. I find them really bulky. I hate them. So I actually just use a couple of bits of electrical tape on the end. Where you cut it, you end up with quite a sharp bit just there. So instead of using the tips, which are chunky, I just use, some electrical tape, which I've never had a problem with. I've been using that for years and years and years, and it's really smooth, but it's enough to stop this sharp part rubbing through the fabric. So this is where I'm up to with the corset. So I've joined the 2 layers right sides together and stitched along the sides and the bottom, turn them in the right way, and then top stitch the sides and bottom. Then the top edge will be finished when I sew the dress onto it. So that's how I'll attach the outside dress. So now this is together, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin through the seams and then stitch through the seams to hold both layers together. Once I've stitched together at the seams, I can stitch bone casings in, stitching through both layers, and then insert the boning from the top.